What up, though? It's your player partner, Captain Trippz. Trippz, Cap, call me whatever you want to call me. Just don't call me lazy, all right? I wanted to bend your ear a little bit around everything that's going on around Cyberpunk 2077. I knew shit was real when one of my friends, a guy who doesn't like anything animated, was reading some new financial news and picked up his head and asked me about it. You know it's real if it's hitting Forbes.com, right? If you don't know, Cyberpunk 2077 is an action RPG game from Polish studio CD Projekt Red. It's the same studio that we got the Witcher series from. The game dropped just 2 weeks ago now, and unfortunately for gamers, it's completely full of bugs. I have the Xbox Series X version, and it's considered the quintessential console version because it runs the best there, but I haven't been without my own issues, from the game stuttering and crashing when I'm driving through the city at top speed. It's the most cars I've ever seen on the road at once. That's 745 traffic. No, don't do that. 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 Keep going. Wow. Weapons not shooting when people are shooting at you. And just the other day, I actually had a love scene with one of my primary love interests, and completely right after that cutscene, I hopped out of the tank in my drawers. Now, our gamers in arms over at PS5, they haven't been so lucky. I've seen some of the worst graphics since the 90s on such a beautiful machine. I mean, some of the best graphics out of the new generation have come from PS5, and you're getting hot dogs that are full of complete diagonals and triangles and shit like that. It doesn't make any sense. But we're lucky. On the other end of the stick, in the last gen, I guess if you want to call it that, the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One owners, the game is completely unplayable on those platforms. Their machines are being pushed to the limit, and the game, I've seen so many people just get up in arms to start requesting refunds, and it's gotten so bad that PlayStation has actually taken the game off of their store. I think that may have only happened one other time, if I'm not mistaken. But to accurately talk about what's going on with Cyberpunk, I think we really need to have a conversation about the business of gaming. The game was announced back in 2012, meaning there's an ass of people, including this guy here, that have been waiting for this game for 8 years. But over time, it kind of felt like it was something that was far away and never coming. And this year, especially with E3 being canceled and being pushed back several times, it kind of felt like gaming's version of Dr. Dre's Detox. I know what you're saying, but we got trailers back in 2013 and 2018 and 2019. And hell, when they canceled E3, we had the Night City Wires, right? But all of those trailers and all those events had pre-rendered graphics, like they were going to situations that they knew they would go into well in advance, and it wasn't really anything on the spot, anything really representative of real gameplay, right? And we've seen it happen time and time again at E3 or the Game Awards, Gamescom, wherever, where they're gonna show us a video, beautiful game, the graphics look like something from 5020, not 2020, but 5020, right? But then you get your hands on the game and it looks nothing alike. And you know what it is? It's that little bit of text that's at the bottom of the screen during those trailers that tell you, hey, this is an actual gameplay, this is from the alpha or the beta. That's how they cover their ass. So that's kind of on us as gamers. I mean, me personally, unless I see someone on the stage playing the game and making decisions in real time, I don't really believe anything that they're saying to us. Then as the game went from April to September to November, and then finally on to December, I had in my heart of hearts, I really felt like if they push this game back again, I'll understand. But maybe it's also because the media was letting us know slowly, hey, there's something wrong here. There's something wrong. It just didn't make sense with all the hype that we weren't hearing any information up until weeks before the game came out. I mean, according to CD Projekt Red, the story was complete back in 2018, and mid 2019 they said, hey, the content was nearly complete and all we got to do is polish it, right? So when they went into crunch, something that they've spoken out against time and time again, and then turn around and force their own employees to work 6-hour weeks, 6-day weeks, we thought for sure by the time the game came out, it was going to be the greatest game ever. I mean, they had the largest staff they'd ever had. They had a $330 million budget, and then they were coming off The Witcher 3. Come on, man. Except it wasn't. But we got to go back a little bit further. Right? I'd never played a Witcher game before The Witcher 3. I mean, if I'm being completely honest, it was never really on my radar, and I would have never even known what the game was had it not just appeared in my own game. Shout out to Game Sharing, by the way. So I downloaded it on my OG Xbox One and loaded it up. I mean, I thought it seemed interesting enough from the intro, but whenever I went to go load the game, it take, and I'm not kidding, 7 minutes to load the game up. Now, imagine that you're on a quest, but you look over here and you want to go do some exploring, right? So you take a right instead of a left, and then you end up falling into a whole camp of villains. And me, not knowing really the systems and how the magic and potions work, I would die a lot. And it would take the same amount of time to respawn the game. Like, I would just be sitting there with the controller in my hand, ready to go, and nothing. Just waiting. Now, imagine being smacked out of your mind, right? And you're playing the game, and it's already late night. You're already kind of low energy. You die, and you're waiting 7 minutes for the game to load, and you would fall asleep with your head on your arm or something like that. Then, right as you wake up, you come to find that you've been loaded back in the game, and random enemies are now drawing down on you, killing you again. And guess what? You gotta wait another 7 minutes to play the game. It was a lot. It was a lot. So I uninstalled that shit quickly. But it wasn't until I got my Xbox One X that I was actually able to play the game. I mean, the loading issue was completely negated, and I was able to get into the story and the world that they presented in the game. CD Projekt Red knocked that shit out the park. The Witcher 3, in my opinion, one of the best games of last generation. I found out that the game that I literally was sleeping on was probably deeper than any other game that I played in the generation before. I mean, decisions you'd make about who to help or who to side with in a side mission would then come back. I mean, it might be something as small as a dialogue response or how you responded. Was it nice? Was it rude? That might ripple out and touch someone else's, progression in your main mission, especially when it came down to the end game. And not just on some BioWare, you go and get the people and then you come to the final fight and you got all this back up. Although it was some of that, it rippled and it touched other characters that you didn't know that it would match up that way. And then the story itself, just the end game, it kind of touched me a little bit more that I'm ready to share with y'all. It's a personal moment. Okay. So when people rag on Cyberpunk for the technical difficulties and the technical issues, I completely understand. I mean, the game may just be too much for some machines and the older generation of consoles to take. I mean, you already had PlayStation 4s that sounded like airplanes when they were playing Ghost of Tsushima or The Last of Us 2. We knew consoles were at the end of their generation because of how they would process the games that were coming out now. Now you're trying to run a game with ray tracing and lighting bouncing off of all glass surfaces in a futuristic setting with brutalistic buildings that go up and out as far as the eye can see. Come on now. Had they made a decision about restricting the game to just PlayStation 5s and Xbox Series X's and S's, I think it would have been upsetting, but I think they would have avoided a little bit of the issue that they found themselves in now. But they didn't. I mean, it's completely their fault. They purposely muddied the water when it came down to, depictions of versions of the game. I didn't know until like one of the last Night City wires that the version that I'm playing now on my Xbox Series X is really just a backwards compatible version of an Xbox One game. We're not even truly seeing the game to its fullest experience. We won't get that next gen really experience until an update that's supposed to come in 2021. Hopefully. I mean, they might have a lot to fix right now. But we need to lay that blame on the feet of the suits who are making those big decisions, not the developers who are subject to them. You want to know how they feel? Just look back at the news coming out of their recent meeting where they went in on their bosses for the communication around a game that within a week now, you raised $6 billion with a B dollars of company value. Now to work double time to fix a game that you were already working double time to put out, and we're still talking about a next gen update and DLC and multiplayer down the line, I'd be pissed too. And that's enough without some dweeb tweeting threats from the bottom bunk of a room that he shares with his younger brother. We gotta stop doing that. I mean, it's justified to be angry. And on top of that, you got echo chambers of people who haven't even played the game echoing that sentiment. I saw people who didn't touch a controller, but they heard their buddy, cousin's cat had a bad experience trying to play the game on their base PS4 and it did the whoa on them, and they want to retweet that. Come on now. The anger is justified. The glitches, they're plenty, but even with all that, there's a great game underneath. Just the other night, I was doing a mission that was an offshoot of a side character, a guy that had I not been in this one place at this one time, I would have never met. It was on his quest tree, and it got intense. It got really dark. To be honest, I would have played a game built around that side mission itself. And from what I know, a lot of the side missions came around from story missions that they just never petered out or really melded back into the main storyline. The launch of this game has been the stuff of legend and not necessarily all good. But like we did with No Man's Sky, if we give them time to iron out the kinks, I know you'll find a gem underneath, alright? And with that, I'm gonna let you go. I got some more work to do if I plan on turning my V into a killing machine. I'm deadly with the blades, you heard, and you really don't want to see me with my gorilla arms, bruh. I really just want to let y'all know whenever they do come up with a multiplayer, my V gonna be ready. Will yours?